When was the last time you saw an independent bookstore or even stepped into one? In this episode, we get to know more about D Villamero and his independent bookstore, Cebu-based Lost Books. We find out why they're so important in nurturing community, preserving local culture, and making literature accessible to all. I'm your host, Albert Orr, and this is Drawing on Hope, where we talk to inspiring people who will paint for us their vision of a better world. Before we jump into the conversation, click the like, subscribe, and follow buttons. It helps others find our show and be part of this movement for hope. Dee, can you share with us one of your earliest memories of how you fell in love with books?
Sure. So books is it started when I was really young. I remember my parents could not afford to buy me books, and I when I go to the mall at the time, Rustan's pa, they have a selection. It was like a mini books there, and I always see this Disney children's books. I'm so into that. Pero sobrang mahal, like so expensive. My parents could not afford at the time. And then I remember the only time that my parents get extra money was during Christmas time. So I had this idea to um, send a love letter to Santa Claus every Christmas and ask for children's books. That's the only time that I will get a children's book because my parents could afford it. So what happened is that when I was in grade three, I remember I stopped reading. I don't know the term, but my reading comprehension slowed down when I was in grade three. My parents at that time, this was in the 1990s, they didn't know how to, you know, deal with it, and also they didn't know that I was struggling. I remember I read so easily. I read fast, and then it's just I read and reread and reread. It's just nothing going into my head. So I have to start from scratch. I did really struggle for some time. And now the effect of that is that up to now, I read very slow. Um, but also in a way, parang maganda din kasi I'm able to absorb the words. I'm able to really sit on my feelings and what this sentence or paragraph is trying to say, or the scene is the author is trying to say, and I really are able to internalize it and all that stuff. But when I get into fiction, I started, oh my god, this is just not for me because I get so obsessed with characters, and then I find out, oh my god, hindi pala to totoo. These are all this imagination of the author. But then I read Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Mm.
And then I realized at that point, oh my God, fiction is it's still rooted in reality, but packaged in a different way through the imagination and creativity of the author. And it really is, I come to realize, and for the first time, it was like, it's an art form. Book is an art form, writing is an art form. And that really made me fall in love even more.
How has that relationship with books carried
Mm.
over to now I'm a bookstore owner? How did that come about?
Ah, all right. So I was working for straight college, right? After college, I went to Singapore. I sent out resumes and I end up working as a editor for Wiley Publishing House, which is one of the top 10 big publishing houses in the world. And then after Wiley, I applied and got into Pearson, which is the mother company of Penguin. Um, After 5 or 6 years there, I was like, still something is missing. So I went back. This is 2016, and I put up my own independent publishing house in Cebu. And then after around 5 years doing that, went from 2018 to 2024. I hope that's 5 years. I was like, oh, something was missing pa rin. I was so sad at the time. So my brother who lives in the UK, I told him, can I go to the UK? Well, he invited me to the UK because I wanted to like soul search. And then so then I fell in love. I remember I was just independent book hopping, and I said I was like praying to open my own bookshop someday. I really didn't know initially, didn't know how to go about it. It's because, in a third world country, independent bookstore, focusing on local literature in Cebu, will that work? And would people actually buy into that and support it?
What did
So
you see in the independent bookstores there that you weren't seeing in, I don't know, national bookstore or the
a
big chain stores?
community is really the community. Like I've never, because as a foreigner, when you go to like places, you just don't feel at home. But when I go inside a bookstore, you just feel it. Like you are, it feels like you are part of this exclusive community of just people who are into books. And when you go there, literally you can talk to the owners, you can talk about books, like books recommendation and all that, and it's just very human to human connection, which I do not find in any places I go to, not even cafes or any restaurants. Ah, my god, it's the community that's like really around it, and the people that they really know also, because we know with National Bookstore and Fully Book, again, nothing wrong with it. But if you go there, if you ask what book would you recommend, um, for me who is undergoing through something, or I need a new fiction read that has the hero trope or the anti-hero trope, and they will just look at you and then they just have no idea. I mean, they're just there to sell books and not to build that connection.
So fast forward to when you're back in Cebu, how
Yes.
did Lost Books come about?
Oh, so I had a friend of mine who who knew about this place. It's a very small space, no. Uh, so it used to be a bank that closed down because of the pandemic, and then the side of the bank where they keep all the ATM machines, they boarded it up when they remove all the ATM machines, and it is now this very narrow, long space. And initially, the owner wanted someone to come in and put up a breakfast place, siguro. Um, but none really was interested, or nothing happened until I came in, and I was like, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, oh, can we make this into a bookshop? I said, you mean like a cafe that sells books? He said, no, 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 like really real a bookshop. And then maybe we allow people to read because books are expensive. Will you make money? I mean, it's fine with us since we're just taking your rent, but for you, can you survive? I said, I have no idea. We just have to see it. And so we signed up a 1-year lease, and so far it has been really doing great. So looking back, I was like glad I took I took the plunge.
And I know you're doing a lot of interesting things in Lost Books, from having a curated selection of not
Mm,
just the international books, but more
mm,
importantly, the local authors.
right.
I know that people can buy not just brand new books, but also secondhand books. And if they can't afford it, they can pay a subscription, correct? Like I can just borrow a book at a time.
Yeah, well, we used to have that, although we put that on hold first, but we will relaunch it, mainly because right now at the bookshop I'm managing everything,
Everything,
right?
right?
Yeah, everything, and that's really just the reality of an independent run space. It's only just me and my part-timers who can only commit every weekend. So mainly it's just me, and I have to run the place on my own. And yun, parang, oh, it's taking too much time. I have to, like, you have to individually um, remind people, hey, meron ka pang books na hindi pa nababasa or hindi pa na-return to us. So kindly read it so that you can return it na. So that long process lang, I need someone has to like really constantly remind um, the people to return the book. So kung hindi, makakalimutan talaga nila. And worst is they will lose the book, right?
But what I'm
So,
seeing is you're making
mm,
all of these efforts to, I guess, find different tiers and access
right.
points for readers, right? Why is it
Yes,
important
exactly.
for you to create that kind of space?
Okay, so number one is that I'm going to talk about like just remember when I was a child, it books were my escape. Books were my escape. I went through so many stuff, and even some dark stuff, and which is very normal, I guess. Um, and then books were there. Books were there for me, and I probably subconsciously was really trying to really want to build a space that people can escape to. So when if you go to a bookshop, and also a place na genuine for book
Mhm.
lovers like me, because a lot of like spaces that where you can read books, not talaga, it doesn't feel right, you can't really read, but hopefully, and people are saying that they feel it now when they go to our bookstore, they feel that they can really read, so they have a corner for them. Even though it's small, they can actually like read, no, and can spend hours at the shop and just reading and just really disconnect. And also, that's also one. We are all very connected now online, so it would be good to just really sit on your own. And there's so many things happening or trying to trying to distract us with books kasi you can really focus, um, right? You can really focus and sit with your thoughts and also escape to places that you've never been to. Know characters that you've never even like you get to live someone else's life but the most important for me is a whole new perspective, because if we entertain new perspective, it also help us develop critical thinking, which I think is kind of lost right now. A lot of people are just saying yes or just trying to accept what they see on social media. Um, and I was like, so this is so important to that we have critical thinking, I believe, because you get to see who you really are and you get to experience, and that's what I see in books, and that's what I'm trying to cultivate in the bookshop. And also preservation, and siguro lastly is, it's very important independent, and this is where independent bookshops are very important, because they really are promoting, they're a way to promote local culture and local language and local perspective and local stories. And in our education system, it's not really that. It's either books authored by international authors or from Manila. I mean, but I'm missing, or we're missing the local perspective, the local touch, like
Yeah.
what happened in Cebu during martial law. So where are the stories on that? So um, something like that. So it was very important for me.
I like that
Yeah.
you're saying that books present an opportunity to escape, right? I can
Mm,
escape whatever problems I'm worrying about right now. I can
mm,
escape from the social media and whatever is trying to always pester me for attention. But at the
mm,
same time, because as I immerse myself in literature, I'm also able to expose myself to perspectives beyond my own. And I come
mm-hmm,
out of that escape, I come out of that disconnection. Actually, the way I'm hearing you explain it, it sounds like I come back from that escape changed in a way, and ready for even deeper connection, because maybe before I can only see my perspective, but because I read more books, now I understand how other people would feel, people I've never met, places I've never been, and that changes us in a way. And that sounds really powerful, D.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. Thank you for saying that.
as a follow up to that, because hearing how powerful literature can be, um, and since you started talking about it as well, how does that carry over to community? What do you want to accomplish with lost books in your local environment?
I think community is very important in a way na, and that's really how it also like connects with books. No, I remember people when they come in, since our space is very small as well, it's very intimate. It feels very intimate that you can just um, look back and ask, "Hey, what are you reading? What is that about? Can you give me a recommendation?" Um, so that, and then um, with also what I also love, no, especially, and I love this because when young people come in, they are immediately in awe of our collection of Visayan authors. So, and they were like, "Oh, we have this! Oh my God, I didn't know that I would see all these Visayan books, this many, like in front of me." And then they start to ask, "What can you recommend for me to read?" And that's
Wow.
also very powerful for me. It's because if you like, if there's no place like like lost books where you can see them in front of you, they're all just, there's no way for you to reach out to each author. Yeah, there's really no way for you to do that, and it feels like we have nothing because they're so all over the place. But when
Right.
they come to see that and nakikita nila, oh, meron pala talaga tayo. And then they start to appreciate that. And so now when they read more Visayan authors, it make them feel seen. Oh, my ideas are also good pala. Because these things that you are talking about, they're familiar to me. And, it's very important. I remember growing up, if someone will ask us, and I love to draw, if someone will ask us to draw a tree, automatically it's an apple tree because that's what we see in
Yeah.
books, right? It's never a coconut tree or a cacao tree or
Right.
a atis tree. It never is because we don't see that usually in books, and we don't romanticize it. We can so yeah, and so that's why I think it's very important for the community to know its community.
To know
You
our
know the
own backyard.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
know our own backyard, and we get to like appreciate it more.
That sounds like you're seeing your role as just as not just a bookseller, but in a way a keeper of the collective experiences, the collective stories of your neighborhood, right? So is that a role that you see other independent booksellers needing to take on, and not just, hey, we can do this, but hey, this is our, I guess, calling.
Yeah, so it's very different. I think right now, where we're so heavily exposed in Western and in Western literature. Well, not just that, but also in Japanese literature. So all literature basically that's not our own. We're so heavily exposed to that. And I'd love to challenge all independent bookshops, and I hope that happens. Um, Independent bookshops to really promote also their own. Um, may not, I would understand like business wise. There's really money in international titles because, again, as I've said, that's what we're exposed to. But to also have a soft spot or just perhaps 10 or 20% of their collection belonging to local, their own neighborhood as well. Like, can you imagine? I remember two ladies went to the shop one day, and they were from a small town in Palawan. I just can't remember the town. And they said that there they have their own language, completely different but from what in Coron um, we're using, right? And this like big um, cities and areas in Palawan. And they said, but there were no books about us or no books that is using our own language, ganon. So I was like, how did you start? They asked like how we started because they really want to do something then on that. And I feel so happy. And I said, yes, go for it. I told them exactly. I was very transparent how we started, how maybe you can approach this or something like that. And you know, we can only tell them through our experience um, what we did that worked. So that I hope booksellers are just really have a percentage to their collection dedicated to fostering and also shedding light to their local um, perspective and language, basically their neighborhood.
So I like the story that you shared about that
Mm,
bookseller.
mm,
I wonder if you have any stories of your own connected to lost books that maybe also captures the spirit that you
mm.
hope to build and the community that you're hoping to build.
Yeah. Um, I with a bookshop, to be honest, it's just so much love every day. No, parang it was so overwhelming. It was like, oh my god, I could not take this sweetness and this kindness. Like people come in there most of the time and they leave notes. There was another day. There was flowers on our table.
Wow.
Tapos my note na thank you. There was one who just really sent me a personal message who DM'd me a message on IG and saying, she said, thank you for the space. I've never felt a deep connection to a place until now when I had lost books. And it's just that, like, generally people, and then I was like, people are nice, people are kind, like it's too precious, you know. I this one I can't forget the feeling what I was feeling at the time she was there. So we had a facsimile, a reprint of the facsimile of the original Nole Metangere manuscript, wherein it was a book and it was written through by Dr. Sarsal, obviously, but my penmanship niya. So you can clearly see his penmanship, all his corrections, his annotations. And I remember someone was there was like, oh, she wanted to see it, and then all of a sudden she was just silent and there's just sobbing. Umiiyak talaga siya. And she was just really overwhelmed with so much emotion. She was crying. She said, oh my God, I never expected in my life. And for the first time, kasi parang she actually saw Jose Rizal as a person like us. Because we have, how we revered our heroes, very saint-like. And sometimes we forget they're also human beings. Um, so, and then she was just like crying and I said, this is the power of books. You know, it's the only way we can connect to Dr. Jose Rizal again through his writings, through his penmanship and all that. He's not anymore here, but the books live on. And that is really the power of books, the physical. It really outlives people. And to have to open up a space that people can actually connect with the past, it's and also in the future, because a lot of you know forward thinkers also put their ideas in books. And that is, just like talking now to you, I was like, yeah, that's the beauty of it. Like in a bookshop you can connect to the past and the future, and it's beautiful and in a tangible way, kasi you can
Yeah.
actually hold it, you can smell it, and if you use your five senses, you use five of your senses or all your senses, it really retains, you know, it's very visceral.
And I remember we had this conversation before as well about how you can even have a dialogue with books. And we go
Yeah.
to, you know, secondhand bookstores. We were sharing our love for these books that have notes on the margins and
Oh,
dedications, right?
right. Right. Oh my God. So I bought vintage 1961 books from a from a seller in Manila. And then there was this books about feminist writings in the 1960s done by, Filipino authors. One of this book actually has a note, not a note written on a um, cigarette pack. So it was flattened out. And then there was a note, like a poem of some sort, written on it. And it dates back to like around the 1980s or something like that. And how amazing is that? Like to have found that, and people actually, the book has a life of its own, and it's the spirit of its previous owners are there and absorbed in its pages, and we're able to connect that. You're able to like get access to that. It's so amazing.
I love it. What would you say to people who might be considering opening their own bookshops? And how would you encourage them to make space for their local literature as well?
Mm. Wow, I hope they're able to do that. I remember someone from Dumaguete came up to me and said, I've been following your journey. It's a lost books. I have my own. So what he does, because, you know, like, di ba may boulevard sila sa Dumaguete? He is a student and he can only, they term it latag in Bisaya,
Yeah.
like display, right? He can only do that at night after school. And he calls his bookstore Bookstore of the Eve, of the evening. And with that beautiful story that it can only be accessible at night, that creates so much lore and so much personality. Um, so I just really pray for that person, no? That he's able to do that. He'll have a chance to have his own bookshop someday. And I'm sure he's not alone. There's hundreds and hundreds of people wanting to put up their own bookshop. Um, yes, and I would really like to encourage to help local authors, help local stories just to be accessible to people, to be accessible with their own kind. It's like, to be accessible with their own neighbors. It's not only important, it's very vital because without us promoting it, without us letting the public know or letting the public have access to it, no one will.
Let me take a broader view for the next few minutes, D.
Sure.
Um, because I really want to get into just the reading culture in general, right?
Mm.
So there's there's this there's this persistent narrative that Filipinos are not a book reading culture. I don't know if you've heard that, but it's something that I
Yeah.
even for me, I've grown up and I started my career in publishing. I was already
Mm.
being forewarned. Okay, but don't expect too many copies will be printed of your book because we're not a reading culture. And you go into a
Right.
national bookstore, in terms of square footage, you can see that more space is devoted to office supplies and school supplies than actual books, right?
Absolutely.
Um, so that cultural narrative seems to persist. What's your take on that?
Right. That is a very, I think kasi, um, it's really not what we are like exposed to. Um, and that is talaga we cannot change. Wala talaga. We were not brought into, we always thought na to have a book, or what's worst case is a school, books are just there to help us memorize things. Right? So, ano talaga siya, it doesn't really, there's no love of it at all. And also, maybe subconsciously, because we cannot relate to them, we don't see our own. Like, I remember all the textbooks. Parang madalang lang. Only a few lang talaga na the pictures on the textbooks are actually Filipinos. More Western or European. Parang
Right.
not talaga. Like, who are these people? And right now pa, in social media, it's always we glamorize the glamour one, the beautiful ones. They're always not. It's the beauty standard also is not catered to us. I mean, we have so many products in the Philippines not trying beauty products that are trying to make us white. You know what I mean? Or have a fairer skin. So that is ano siya. So it's very complicated, and with the reading community kasi din talaga. Um, yeah, so school, as I've said, we don't have really a good relationship with books outside of schools. Outside of schools talaga, wala na. I remember growing up, there's like I don't know if it's a joke, but people say na, "Hay, hindi na ako magbabasa during summertime kasi nagbabasa na ako sa school." I'd rather play and all that. But I think it really stems because our relationship with book was not loving and healthy. It's
Right.
quite toxic, and demanding at times.
What do you think is it that we don't understand about
Uh,
ourselves as readers?
yeah. I think we really ano kasi we think talaga it's a chore, and that's why we have to get out of that mindset that books and I always like tell people when they tell me, "Oh, I'm not a reader," because I don't have the patience to read a book. And I always
Or
say this.
you hear these
Yeah,
things as a
yeah,
bookseller.
yeah. And I always say this to them. What you can do actually is read a book that you actually like. You read the subject that you actually like. It's the only way. It's the only way. Again, I cannot help but think about how we are forced to read a certain book in education, but that we do not like and we do not care to understand. But if you are into, space, then that should be what book you should be reading about space, and it really sparks your love for it. Um, do not, and I told the parents, because parents, oh, you know what? I really love my kids to read, and I always ask them about. So kahit ano na, okay lang yan. I just really want them to
Yeah.
read. No. It has to be like you can do not force them because they will learn to hate it. Yeah.
I appreciate what you're saying. It seems like such an obvious thing. Like, read the things you're interested in.
But it's not. It's not what's going
But it's not.
on.
Yeah, you're right. It's not. And I was thinking back to all these barriers that you were listing earlier about how growing up we were not our elders did not nurture a love for reading for us as a people.
Mm,
You were talking about how in education reading is a means to memorize, or even 'di ba, as a means to an end. It's a means for us to get employed in a good job. So once
right.
I'm in a job na, I'm employed na. I don't have to read anymore. Quota na. I appreciate all of these things that you're saying about the different complex barriers that we have, from how we're not being nurtured to love books to because the standards are international or specifically Western. And so, how can we see ourselves in the books we're being asked to read? How
Mm,
is Lost Books maybe pushing back um, against the idea that literature is, reserved for the elite few, right? It's not for me. How are
mm.
you trying to push back against that?
Yeah, number one is that's why it's very important for me to have people read for free. Um, Business wise, it's not really, I mean, a lot of business owners will be like, why are you doing that? I mean, Have you been lately to a fully booked where all the books are sealed that you cannot read? I mean, I understand it because you cannot sell, especially if it's have been like
Yeah.
browsed through na tapos meron na, or the worst case is damaging the books, right? But it was important for me to allow people to read because number one, books are so expensive. Even though we sell secondhand books, right? It's also the space. Books take space.
Right.
Like when you go home, right? And then you look at, oh my God, I cannot put in so many junk pa, especially my I mean the new generation right now. Ang mahal na kaya ng bahay. Ang mahal pa ng space. So that is one. So that is one we were doing, making talaga um, books accessible. But our hope also at the bookshop is really to connect with people. And I always say this, and I say this to people na Lost Book is really not trying to cater to those people who love books. To be honest, and I mean, like it's very I don't know, huh? You're a bookstore. Why are you not promoting yourselves to the people who love books? Because they don't need promotion, to be honest. They
Okay.
love books
Okay.
already. Naturally, they will find our store.
Okay.
Um, they will just pass and say, that's a bookshop. I know what a bookshop is. I have to go in and buy books, right? But I really want to cater to people who are still yet to understand the power of books, like how I was when I was young. And there are so many communities that do not have that access to books, or that has so much story, but they just didn't know that they can actually write them in books. And that yun talaga ang inano ko ng mga communities, to make them feel seen through the power of books. Right.
And then in the long term, how once you have this community that you've nurtured,
Mm.
maybe it doesn't make business sense in the short term that they read the books for free, but hopefully in the long term it converts them and they become buyers as well. But
Yeah.
beyond the increase of sales,
Mm.
I guess the question I want to ask D is how can how can having more people who appreciate and support literature, how can spaces that celebrate literature help spark larger social change?
So I mean, so book kasi it's really a personal relationship, because it's just you and the book. Well, it's you and the author speaking through a book, and that change for whatever it's very individual level, and I hope that individual numbers is large enough to make actual change in its society. One of the partnership that we're looking into in our books a is a partnership with the Cebu City Jail. So with the Cebu City Jail, there's so many. We are what we wanted is to have a number which the organization, the jail, warden, and all that will choose for us, and we actually help these people, who are deprived of liberty, to tell their story through books, or right, and maybe do an anthology and making just their story out there, um, and really giving them a voice, right, really giving them a call to human. um, this is you my you know I this is how I feel, this is how I feel in all of this. And will that make them better people? I hope so. But again, it's very individual to individual like that. But if there is one thing I truly believe, that is you just plant. What you can only do is just plant a seed, and
Okay.
all ideas, big or small, start with something. Just planting a seed, and and all the convenience, all the rights movement, all the revolutions that came, that 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 is that was beneficial, that were beneficial to us right now, have been started years and years and decades on, but it always started on an idea, the planting of the seed. So that's really what it's all about. And I tell my partners, right, at Lost Books, we're just really here planting for seeds, and we not be able to we're not be able to take advantage of it, you know, to sit in its shade once it's fully grown. But someone has to plant the seed, and we have to be okay with that, to be just the farmers.
I love the
Right.
idea of planting seeds, but hopefully also you can kind of taste man lang some of the fruits of that labor in the
Yeah,
near future.
I mean, that's the hope.
What does that future look like for local literature and independent booksellers? What's the
Mm,
what's the vision that you're seeing?
yeah. The vision I'm seeing is that the future of bookshops in the Philippines is really independent. There is, I think, a clamor of authenticity and a clamor for being proud of your own roots and understanding where is this all coming from. I feel like there is this consciousness that the universe is like opening to everyone to seek more than what they see, and to really see who, really encouraging people to find out who they really are. So people are really looking for that experience, for that sense of community. Um, and I don't know if that's because everyone is so online and people are naturally contrarian, that now they want physical connection. That's why with independent bookshop, we have the opportunity to provide that experience, because
Right.
ours is entirely unique. I can go to an independent bookshop in Davao, for example. My experience would be so much different, or I could go to an independent bookshop in Cebu, and there's so much different. There's so much nuances to it, that I will never know until I get to ano.
As we close, the for those who might be listening who want to support local literature or spaces like Lost Books, what are small but meaningful ways that they can get involved?
Yeah. Number one is goal. If your community has an independent bookshop, then I would always say support them, because they need your support. It's not about profit, it's about passion and really building that community for them. So just really support independent bookshops, and also not just bookshops, maybe a lot of independent shops as well, and a lot of independent businesses as well. I remember because in our bookshop, we have a lot of people requesting that we have our own stamp, our bookshop stamp. And people were saying, "Oh, okay, then just get it from a digital maker. Kasi mas pulido, mas magandang
Right.
pagkakagawa, and all that." But I was like, I didn't. I was like, I have to go to this Colon Street. Colon in Cebu is like believed to be the oldest street in Cebu. There were like people on the sides. Now they make those rubber stamp by hand. It will take time, and as I went there, it took I was it took the entire night and morning for Kuya to make
The one
to do,
stamp.
oh yeah, the one stamp. But and then when you like actually use them, they have so many imperfections, but actually that's the beauty of it. That's like part of the story. It gives so much credence to craftsmanship, and hard work as well. It makes you feel good because you were able to help them, that the money that they're going to use feed their family, right? But it's that really that connection, like business to business. This guy, I can relate to him. He's just really trying to make a living. He's so old now. He's just like me, just doing what, passion, because this is really what he likes, rubber stamp making, and that's okay for him, you know. So just really support um, local craftsmen, and local independent local sellers, all that. Like we have to normalize it, supporting local shop owners and independent shop owners.
I love that because we started. I love that we started talking about just bookstores, and it became about supporting these independent businesses that actually make different locations unique and preserving the culture and the character of that community, especially in the face of, like you said, if everything is available online, I can just order it online. It does make our world smaller, but it also makes things more homogeneous and not as diverse. When when here we are, we have the opportunity to actually embrace the diversity in all its imperfections, because that's a reflection of who we are as well. D, how can we connect with Lost Books, and where can we follow you?
On social media, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. The handle is Lost Book Cebu, and we're also in TikTok.
And where's Lost Books in Cebu? Share with us the
Yeah,
address as well and how we can find it.
yeah. So if so, we are along Osmeña Boulevard, which is one of the historic streets of Cebu. So we're right in the center of the city. We are across a hospital called Cebu Doctors University, Cebu Doctors Hospital. So we are just around, just along the street. So it's a hole in the wall type. Yeah, and that's it.
Thank you so much, D, for your time. Appreciate the conversation.
That's it for this episode of Drawing on Hope. A big thank you to Dee for sharing their story and vision for a better tomorrow. If you found today's conversation meaningful, share it with someone who could use a little hope and inspiration. And if you want to hear more stories of changemakers working to build a better tomorrow, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It helps others find the show. Drawing on Hope is a podcast by Pushpin, a social impact design agency that uses drawings and stories to help make things make sense. Follow us at Pushpin Visuals on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, or visit www.pushpinvisuals.com. As always, keep drawing on hope, keep building a better world, and we'll see you next time.